Marcus Wright stared at the tactical display as another red indicator blinked out. Another orbital defense platform gone. Another few hundred souls vanished in nuclear fire. He rubbed his bloodshot eyes, the stubble on his face rough against his calloused palm. 72 hours without sleep did strange things to a man's mind, but the Vextari invasion fleet didn't care about human circadian rhythms. "General Wright? The Kilimanjaro station just went dark?" Lieutenant Sarah Donovan reported, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "That makes 17 platforms lost in the last 6 hours." Marcus nodded grimly. "And our ground-based defenses? The Seoul and Damascus arrays are still operational, but they're targeting the New York shield generators now. Projections give us 3 hours before total shield failure." The command bunker beneath what remained of Washington, D.C. was the last functioning nerve center of Earth's defenses. When the Vextari Armada had first appeared at the edge of the solar system 3 weeks ago, humanity had been collectively awed by first contact. That awe turned to terror when the first kinetic strikes hit Mars colony, obliterating 30,000 settlers in minutes. "Admiral Keating is on Secure Channel 1, sir," Communications Officer Jason Bradford called out. Marcus activated the channel, and Helena Keating's face appeared on the screen. Her normally immaculate uniform was scorched, a streak of blood dried on her temple. Behind her, emergency lights flashed and crew members scrambled through smoke. "Marcus, the Artemis fleet is down to 8 vessels," she reported, not bothering with formalities. "We managed to take out 2 of their cruisers, but that barely made a dent. Their weapons technology, it's like throwing rocks at a tank." "What's your status, Helena?" "USS Dauntless is holding together, but we've lost all fighters. Hawkins and the Thermopylae are providing cover for evacuating Jupiter Station. The rest are scattered, fighting delaying actions." She paused, swallowing hard. "We're not going to win this, are we?" Marcus couldn't lie to her. "Not now. No, we're not." The Vextari had been utterly methodical in their assault. First disabling deep space communications, then systematically destroying Earth's orbital infrastructure. Their ships, massive, crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them, moved with precision that human vessels couldn't match. Their weapons cut through Earth's most advanced shields like they were tissue paper. "Sir," Bradford interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Vextari command ship." Marcus straightened his shoulders. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, revealing a being that still made Marcus's skin crawl despite having seen them before. The Vextari ambassador had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on a face that resembled polished obsidian. Multiple appendages moved with eerie coordination behind it. "General Marcus Wright," the ambassador spoke, its voice a synthesized approximation of human speech patterns. "Your continued resistance is both illogical and wasteful. Your species has demonstrated admirable tenacity, but the outcome was determined before we fired our first weapon." "What do you want?" Marcus demanded, hands clenched at his sides. "The same thing we informed your United Earth government upon our arrival: unconditional surrender and integration into the Vextari Dominion. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be preserved as a curiosity. Resistance guarantees extinction." Marcus leaned forward. "And if we surrender, what happens to my people? Those with useful skills will serve. The rest will be relocated to labor colonies. Humane by our standards." The multiple eyes blinked in unsettling unison. "You have 1 planetary rotation to transmit your surrender. After that, we begin planetary bombardment of population centers." The transmission cut off. Marcus turned to the grim faces around him. These men and women had fought beyond exhaustion, beyond hope. They deserved better than this. "Sir, what's our play?" asked Colonel Frank Thompson, the scarred veteran who commanded what remained of Earth's ground forces. Marcus walked to the tactical table, where a holographic representation of the solar system showed the overwhelming Vextari forces in red, surrounding the pitiful blue specks of human resistance. "We've got 24 hours before they start targeting civilians directly," he said. "I want all remaining resources directed to evacuation. Get as many people to the hardened shelters as possible." "And military assets?" Sarah asked. "Whatever we have left we throw at them. Not to win, that's not possible now, but to buy time." Outside the command bunker, the ruins of Washington, D.C. stretched for miles. Once proud monuments lay in rubble, skyscrapers reduced to twisted metal and concrete. The first wave of kinetic strikes had targeted military installations, but the Vextari hadn't been particularly concerned with collateral damage. Marcus remembered the day the invasion began. He'd been reviewing deployment strategies for the newly commissioned Artemis fleet, humanity's pride, the culmination of decades of technological advancement. Now those mighty vessels were burning debris, scattered across the solar system. As night fell, Marcus stood at the viewport overlooking the devastated capital. In the distance, fires still burned. Occasionally the ground shook as another defensive position fell. "General," Sarah approached cautiously, "there's something you should see." She led him to a secondary command station where Dr. Eleanor Walsh was waiting. The chief scientist of Project Prometheus looked like she hadn't slept in a week, which was probably accurate. "Doctor," Marcus acknowledged her, "please tell me you have good news." Eleanor's tired eyes held a spark of something, not quite hope, but determination. "Not good news, exactly, but maybe our only option." She brought up schematics on her tablet. The Prometheus signal. "It's ready," Marcus frowned. "I thought the project was theoretical. Years from completion." "It was, but we've been working around the clock since the invasion began. It's not what we envisioned, not nearly as refined as it should be, but it will transmit." Project Prometheus had been humanity's most closely guarded secret, not a weapon, but a call for help, a specially modulated tachyon signal designed to penetrate subspace in a way that traditional communications couldn't. The theory was that somewhere, somehow, someone might be listening. "And you believe this could actually work?" Marcus asked. Eleanor's expression was grave. "I believe it's the last card we have to play." Marcus looked back at the tactical display. The Vextari ships were moving into final bombardment positions. Their assault had been calculated, efficient, and utterly merciless. They knew humans were beaten, and they were just waiting for the formal surrender. "The signal requires a tremendous energy burst," Eleanor continued. "We've modified the Yellowstone geothermal plant to generate it, but triggering the signal will burn out the entire North American power grid. What's left of it, anyway? How long will the blackout last?" "Permanently," Eleanor said simply. "The surge will melt the distribution systems." Marcus understood the implications. Without power, the remaining ground defenses would fail. The bunkers would run on emergency generators until those too failed. They would be completely vulnerable. "Do it," he ordered. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparations. The remaining military forces were positioned to protect civilian evacuation routes. Every available vessel, from military transports to private yachts, was loading refugees bound for the hardened shelters built into mountain ranges across the globe. Admiral Keating's fleet had pulled back to Earth orbit in a final defensive formation. They wouldn't last long against the Vextari cruisers, but they didn't need to. They just needed to buy time. At dawn, Marcus stood in the transmission center beneath Yellowstone National Park. Once a tourist attraction, the massive geothermal taps now hummed with power being channeled into Eleanor's device, a spiderweb of exotic materials surrounding a quantum core. "Energy levels at maximum capacity," Eleanor reported. "The signal is primed." Marcus's hand hovered over the activation control. "What exactly are we saying with this message, Doctor? In human terms?" Eleanor met his gaze. "3 things. Here we are. Help us. Hurry." "And you're sure someone's listening?" "No," she admitted. "But the mathematics suggesting advanced civilizations exist beyond the Vextari are sound. Whether they'll respond..." She trailed off. Marcus's secure comm unit buzzed. It was Keating. "They're moving into attack formation, Marcus. Whatever you're doing down there, do it fast." Marcus took a deep breath. The lives of 10 billion humans rested on this desperate gamble. Initiating Prometheus signal in 3, 2, 1. He pressed the control. The lights flickered, then died as darkness engulfed them. For a moment nothing happened. Then a low hum built to a piercing whine as the quantum core began to glow, pulsing with energy that radiated outward in waves visible to the naked eye. "Signal transmitting," Eleanor whispered, her face illuminated by the ethereal light. The ground beneath them trembled as the full power of Earth's largest geothermal plant poured into the device. Outside, the night sky lit up with aurora-like waves as the tachyon signal burst outward, rippling through subspace. "In orbit, Admiral Keating watched from the bridge of the Dauntless as the signal manifested as a shimmering distortion, spreading outward from the planet below. The Vex-Terry ships paused in their advance, clearly detecting the unexpected energy signature. "What did you do, Marcus?" she murmured. Back in the transmission center, Marcus watched as Eleanor's device reached peak output, then began to crack, crystal components splintering under the strain. The quantum core pulsed once more blindingly bright, then imploded with a sound like shattering glass. In the sudden darkness, emergency lights slowly came on, casting a red glow over the exhausted faces of the team. "Signal complete," Eleanor confirmed, checking her instruments. Full transmission achieved. Marcus's comm unit crackled with static before clearing. "General Wright," Frank Thompson's voice came through, tension evident. "The Vex-Terry fleet is accelerating their attack timeline. They've launched bombardment vessels, ETA to first strikes, 40 minutes. They'd expected this. Any unknown technology would be perceived as a threat. Get to the evacuation transport," Marcus ordered Eleanor and her team. "Head for Shelter Complex Alpha." As they rushed to comply, Marcus remained behind, staring at the now-dead Prometheus device. Humanity's last hope, sent blindly into the cosmos. His comm unit activated again. This time, it was Admiral Keating, her voice oddly calm. "Marcus, there's something happening out here. The Vex-Terry ships they're changing course. All of them repositioning for attack?" "No," she replied, confusion evident. "They're moving away from Earth fast, and there's some kind of disturbance forming at the edge of the system." Marcus felt his heart rate spike. "What kind of disturbance?" "I don't know. It's like something is tearing through space itself." The signal, had it actually reached someone? Had it worked that quickly? Or had they just alerted an even greater threat to their presence? "Stand by, Helena," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the tumult of emotions. "And be ready for anything." As the Vex-Terry fleet accelerated away from Earth in what could only be described as a retreat, Marcus Wright allowed himself to feel something he thought had died days ago: hope. Admiral Helena Keating gripped the edge of her command console as the USS Dauntless trembled, not from weapons fire, but from the gravitational distortions rippling through space. The view screen showed a phenomenon none of her crew had ever witnessed: a massive tear in the fabric of reality, pulsing with energy at the edge of the solar system. "What am I looking at, Gibson?" she demanded. Lieutenant Commander Gibson, her science officer, stared open-mouthed at the readings. It's a controlled quantum rupture, Admiral, similar to theoretical fold space technology, but orders of magnitude more sophisticated. The Vex-Terry fleet had abruptly broken off their attack formation, their crystalline vessels accelerating away from Earth at maximum thrust, a panicked retreat that made no tactical sense given their overwhelming superiority. "They're running," muttered Commander Jackson, her tactical officer. "But from what?" His question was answered as the spatial tear expanded, stabilized, and disgorged something that defied immediate comprehension. "My God," Helena whispered. Emerging from the rift were ships, if they could even be called that. Sleek, obsidian constructs that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, their hulls adorned with glowing blue circuitry. They moved with impossible grace, their formations precise beyond anything human pilots could achieve. Her comm unit crackled. "Admiral Keating, this is General Wright. Are you seeing this?" "Affirmative," she replied, unable to tear her eyes from the spectacle. "Unknown vessels entering the system. Hundreds of them. Marcus, they're pursuing the Vex-Terry." In the command bunker beneath Washington, D.C., Marcus watched the tactical display with a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. The mysterious vessels were moving at velocities that should have been impossible, overtaking the fleeing Vex-Terry ships with ease. "Sir," Lieutenant Sarah Donovan said, her voice barely above a whisper, "we're receiving a transmission. It's directed specifically to you." Marcus exchanged glances with Colonel Thompson before nodding. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and Marcus felt his blood freeze in his veins. The face that appeared was unmistakably human, a man in his 50s with steel-grey hair and eyes that held centuries of wisdom. "General Marcus Wright," the man said, his voice carrying the strange accent Marcus couldn't place. "I am Fleet Admiral James Thorne of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We received your distress signal. The Prometheus protocol has been activated. Marcus struggled to find his voice. I don't understand. Terran Expeditionary Force? There's no such organization. Admiral Thorne's expression softened slightly. Not in your records, no, but we've been waiting for this day for 200 years. Before Marcus could respond, Eleanor Walsh pushed her way to the front of the stunned group. The Artemis contingency, she breathed. It's real. Thorne nodded. Dr. Walsh, your ancestor would be proud. Marcus looked between them in confusion. Someone tell me what's happening. Eleanor's eyes were wide with wonder. The Artemis contingency. It was a conspiracy theory, a myth in scientific circles. The story goes that in the early days of space exploration, we encountered something out there, something that made our leaders realize how vulnerable Earth really was. But instead of announcing it to the world, we prepared, Thorne finished. A secret colony, a hidden fleet, an insurance policy for humanity that operated in complete isolation from Earth, developing technologies that could defend against threats like the Vextari. That's impossible, Colonel Thompson sputtered. No more impossible than what you're witnessing, Thorne replied. We've monitored Earth for generations, waiting for the signal that would call us home. You should know, General Wright, that your Dr. Walsh's Prometheus signal didn't just reach us by chance. It was designed to find us a lock seeking its key across the stars. On the tactical display, the mysterious vessels, the human vessels, had engaged the Vextari fleet. But unlike Earth's defenders, they weren't being torn apart. They were winning. Supreme Commander Vexnar watched in mounting horror as the third battle group disintegrated under the onslaught of the unknown vessels. Around him, the command deck of the flagship Eternal Dominance was in chaos. Tactical officers reporting catastrophic losses, weapons systems failing against the newcomers' defenses. Impossible, he hissed, all four eyes fixed on the strategic display. These vessels bear Terran energy signatures, yet their technology exceeds our own by at least 2 evolutionary cycles. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vexlith, approached cautiously. Supreme Commander, we have confirmed the vessels originated from beyond Sector 931. They appear to have responded to the strange signal the humans transmitted. Vexnar's outer appendages twitched in agitation. The Conclave assured us Sector 921 was uninhabited. They guaranteed the humans were isolated, technologically primitive. This was to be a routine integration. Their weapon systems are targeting our propulsion arrays with precision strikes, Vexlith reported. They're not attempting to destroy us, they're disabling our retreat capabilities. On the view screen, Vexnar watched as one of their mighty dreadnoughts, a vessel that had conquered 12 civilizations without sustaining damage, split in 2 under concentrated fire from 3 of the Obsidian ships. Establish communication, he ordered. I must speak with whoever commands these vessels. The communication officer worked frantically, then looked up in shock. They've overridden our encryption protocols. They're broadcasting directly to all Vextari vessels simultaneously. The main screen flickered, and a human face appeared, not the desperate, pleading face Vexnar had expected, but one bearing the calm confidence of absolute superiority. This is Fleet Admiral James Thorne of the Terran Expeditionary Force. Your unprovoked attack on Earth constitutes an act of war against the united human civilization. You were not informed of our existence because you were being evaluated. You have failed that evaluation spectacularly. Vexnar's translator struggled to process the implied meaning. Evaluated? By what authority? By the authority of the Orion Compact, Thorne interrupted, of which humanity is a founding member. Your species' expansionist tendencies have been monitored for decades. We allowed you to develop, hoping you would outgrow your predatory instincts. Your attack on Earth has demonstrated otherwise. The realization hit Vexnar like a physical blow. The Orion Compact, a name whispered in the furthest reaches of space, rumored to be a coalition of advanced species that enforced order in the galaxy. Most Vextari strategists had dismissed it as propaganda. You deceived us, Vexnar accused. The humans on Earth possess primitive technology. Thorne's expression hardened. Earth was protected space, clearly marked in the stellar navigation charts we know you possess. The humans there were left to develop naturally, without interference from their cosmic cousins. They were not bait, but you treated them as such. Around Vexnar, Warning indicators flashed as more Vex-Tari ships fell to the human onslaught. What are your terms? Vexnar asked, the words bitter in his mouth. Unconditional surrender and immediate withdrawal from this system, Thorn replied. Further reparations will be determined by the Compact Council. You have 5 minutes to transmit your surrender before we escalate our response. As the transmission ended, Vexnar turned to his second-in-command. Gather all data on these vessels, transmit it to the homeworld through quantum channels. And our forces? Vexilith asked. Vexnar stared at the tactical display, watching centuries of Vex-Tari military supremacy crumble in minutes. We have no choice. Signal the surrender. Back on the USS Dauntless, Admiral Keating and her crew watched in stunned silence as the Terran Expeditionary Force methodically disabled the once mighty Vex-Tari fleet. What had seemed like an apocalypse hours earlier had transformed into a rout, but with humanity unexpectedly on the winning side. They're surrendering, Commander Jackson announced, disbelief evident in his voice. The Vex-Tari are actually surrendering. Helena couldn't process it. After weeks of watching her fleet being systematically dismantled, after losing thousands of her people to an enemy that had seemed unstoppable, victory had arrived from nowhere. Her comm unit activated. Admiral Keating, came Marcus Wright's voice. Are you seeing this? I'm seeing it, she replied. I'm not sure I'm believing it. Admiral Thorn has requested permission to dock with Earth's remaining orbital facilities. He's bringing a delegation to meet with us. Helena swallowed hard. Our own people out there all this time. Not just our people, Marcus replied, his voice tight with emotion. Our salvation. On the surface of Earth, crowds gathered around emergency broadcasts showing the Vex-Tari retreat. In the ruins of cities, in overcrowded shelters, in military installations where soldiers had prepared for a hopeless last stand, people watched the miraculous turn of events unfold. Colonel Frank Thompson stood at the edge of what had once been the National Mall, staring at the sky where flashes of distant battle were visible even in daylight. Beside him, evacuees paused in their exodus toward the mountain shelters, faces upturned in confusion and dawning hope. What's happening, Colonel? Asked a civilian volunteer who had been helping coordinate the evacuation. Frank shook his head slowly. I think we just discovered we aren't who we thought we were. 12 hours later, Marcus Wright stood in the hastily prepared conference room of the Washington bunker. The delegation from the Terran Expeditionary Force had arrived, 5 men and women in midnight blue uniforms adorned with insignia he didn't recognize, Admiral Thorn among them. 200 years, Marcus said, still struggling to grasp the concept. You've been out there for 200 years, and we never knew. Thorn nodded. After the first contact incident of 2039, a decision was made. Humanity needed a hidden sword, a branch of our civilization that could develop without constraints, focused solely on ensuring our species' survival. And these other species, this Orion Compact, we encountered them 50 years into our exile, explained a woman Thorn had introduced as Director Sophia Blackwood. Advanced civilizations with similar concerns about predatory species like the Vex-Tari. We found common cause. Eleanor Walsh was examining the technical specifications the visitors had shared, propulsion systems, weapons technology, medical advancements that made Earth's greatest achievements look like stone tools. This changes everything, she whispered. That's rather the point, Thorn said, with a faint smile. The Prometheus signal wasn't just a call for help, it was always intended as the trigger for reunification. Outside the bunker, Expeditionary Force vessels had taken up protective positions around Earth. The few remaining Vex-Tari ships were being corralled by sleek predatory craft that moved with impossible agility. Marcus studied the tactical display showing the complete decimation of the invasion force. Why now? Why not reveal yourselves before they killed so many of us? Thorn's expression grew solemn. Revelation protocol dictated. We could only return when Earth had reached the point of developing the signal technology independently. The timeline couldn't be accelerated without risking greater cosmic attention. I'm sorry for those we couldn't save. Admiral Keating, who had shuttled down from orbit to join them, spoke up. And what happens now? Now, Thorn said, looking around at the assembled leaders of Earth they had abandoned centuries ago to forge humanity's secret weapon. We bring you home to the stars, and we introduce the galaxy to humanity, all of humanity as it truly is. He gestured to the view screen showing the defeated Vextari fleet, surrounded by the advanced human vessels. Not as prey, he concluded, but as the apex predator they always feared we might become. The Vextari homeworld of Nexus Prime hung like a perfect crystalline sphere against the backdrop of its 3 moons. For millennia, its inhabitants had gazed outward at the stars, seeing only territories to be conquered, resources to be claimed, species to be subjugated. Never once had they imagined those same stars might one day witness their downfall. Supreme Overlord Vex Canthor, ruler of 12 star systems and absolute authority of the Dominion, through the grand hall of the Ascendancy Spire. Aides scattered before him, sensing his rage. "How many vessels lost?" he demanded of the trembling High Commander who knelt before him. "All of them, Supremacy. The invasion fleet has been completely neutralized." Vex Canthor's 4 eyes narrowed to slits. "And Supreme Commander Vexenar?" "Captured, along with the command staff of 17 capital ships." The Overlord turned to the massive tactical display dominating the chamber's far wall. It showed the once mighty invasion fleet, nearly 800 vessels, now reduced to scattered debris across the Sol system, and beyond them, a swarm of unknown ships establishing defensive perimeters around Earth. "These humans," Vex Canthor seethed. "They were primitive, divided, weak. Our intelligence was meticulous." From the shadows of the chamber, Elder Strategist Vex Morath stepped forward. Unlike the military officers with their ornate armor, he wore simple robes. His age-mottled exoskeleton marked him as one of the oldest living Vextari. "Our intelligence," he said softly, "was incomplete." Admiral James Thorne stood on the bridge of the TEF Excalibur, the flagship of the Terran Expeditionary Force. Beside him, General Marcus Wright studied the holographic projection of the Vextari home system with a mixture of awe and strategic calculation. 23 inhabited worlds, Marcus noted, 3 major fleet anchorages, and you're certain we can take them? "We already have," Thorne replied. "The expeditionary fleets departed for the primary Vextari colonies the moment we secured Earth. What you're seeing is an operation 2 centuries in the making." The display shifted to show real-time updates from across Vextari space. Terran vessels systematically disabling orbital defenses, ground forces deploying with surgical precision, communication hubs falling silent as they were neutralized. "This isn't just about Earth," Thorne continued. "The Vextari have consumed a dozen sentient species in their expansion. The Compact has been monitoring them for generations, awaiting the evidence needed to justify intervention. And we provided that evidence," Marcus said, understanding dawning. "Your Prometheus signal wasn't just a call for help, it was the legal authorization the Compact required, a formally recognized civilization invoking protection under the Compact Charter." Admiral Helena Keating, who had joined the Excalibur's command staff as Earth's representative, approached with a data tablet. "The Vextari Overlord is requesting communication." Thorne nodded. "Put him through." The holographic display shifted to reveal the imposing figure of Vex Canthor. Even in defeat, the alien ruler projected arrogance. "I speak now to whoever commands these forces," the Overlord began. "The Dominion acknowledges your unexpected capabilities. We propose immediate cessation of hostilities and diplomatic recognition." Thorne stepped forward. "This is Fleet Admiral Thorne. Your offer is rejected. The Orion Compact has found the Vextari Dominion guilty of systematic violations of sentient rights across 12 star systems. Your surrender must be unconditional." Vex Canthor's outer appendages twitched with barely controlled fury. "You dare dictate terms to the Dominion? Who are you to judge our civilization? Your species was confined to a single world mere weeks ago." "That," Thorne replied coolly, "is where you're mistaken." With a gesture, he changed the display to show the vast network of human colonies spread across previously uncharted regions of space, hundreds of worlds, massive shipyards, research stations, all hidden from the galactic community for centuries. "Humanity," Thorne continued, "has never been confined to Earth. What you attacked was merely our cradle, not our empire." The revelation struck Vex Canthor visibly. For perhaps the first time in his long life, uncertainty crept into his posture. "Impossible," he whispered. "Your intelligence failure is complete, Overlord. You have 12 hours to transmit your surrender, or we deliver your empire's dismantlement to its core." As the communication ended, Marcus turned to Thorn. "You're bluffing. We can't possibly control that much territory." Thorn's expression remained enigmatic. "Can't we?" In the private chambers of the Ascendancy Spire, elder strategist Vex Morath accessed the ancient archives, records restricted to only the highest echelons of Vextari leadership. As the data streamed before him, his worst fears were confirmed. Supreme Overlord Vex Kenthor burst into the chamber. "The humans have begun attacking the outer colonies. 3 worlds have already fallen. How is this possible? They were nothing." Vex Morath didn't turn from the console. "No supremacy. They were hidden." "Explain." The older strategist gestured to the ancient records. 300 cycles ago, our deep space explorers encountered a vessel on the fringes of what we now call the Nixian Void. The technology was unlike anything we had seen, clearly the product of an advanced civilization. Vex Kenthor approached slowly. "I know of no such encounter. It was erased from our public history." The High Conclave deemed the knowledge destabilizing. On the screen, schematics of an alien vessel appeared. Sleek, black, adorned with blue energy signatures, identical to the ships now dismantling the Vextari Empire. The explorer teams captured technology samples before the vessel self-destructed. Vex Morath continued. Analysis suggested quantum manipulation capabilities far beyond our understanding, but most disturbing were the genetic traces recovered. Genetic traces? Human supremacy. The vessel was crewed by humans 3 centuries ago when our intelligence suggested they had barely discovered atomics. The Overlord stared in disbelief. "If they possessed such technology, then—" "Yes," the elder strategist confirmed. "Everything we believed about their development timeline was wrong. They have been among the stars far longer than we suspected. The Earth we attacked was not their primary civilization. It was their origin point, deliberately maintained in an undeveloped state." "But why? What strategic purpose?" "Control groups," Vex Morath said simply. "The humans we encountered in deep space were studying their own development. Earth was their laboratory." On the TF Excalibur, Marcus Wright and Helena Keating sat across from Admiral Thorn in his private quarters. Gone was the formal military bearing of the bridge. Here Thorn seemed older, warier. "You owe us the full truth?" Marcus said. "Not the sanitized version you've been sharing." Thorn sighed deeply. "The truth is complicated, and not entirely flattering to either branch of humanity." "Try us?" Helena challenged. Thorn activated a secure holographic projection showing a timeline spanning centuries. In 2039, a IB space probe detected an anomaly at the edge of our solar system, a quantum distortion unlike anything our science could explain. When investigation teams arrived, they found themselves. Marcus frowned. "Themselves?" "Human explorers," Thorn clarified, "in ships bearing Earth insignia, but not from our Earth. They came from a parallel timeline where humanity had advanced centuries beyond our development." The revelation hung in the air, almost too vast to comprehend. The alternate humanity had discovered their universe was dying, Thorn continued, entropy accelerating beyond theoretical limits. They developed the technology to cross between realities, seeking habitable universes. When they found us, essentially themselves, but centuries behind, they made a choice. "They guided our development," Helena whispered, understanding dawning. "Yes, the Artemis Protocol was created, a secret program to accelerate humanity's technological evolution with guidance from our alternate selves. But it needed to be controlled, contained, to prevent contamination of Earth's natural development timeline. So they took a portion of humanity and established the Expeditionary Force," Marcus concluded. Thorn nodded. "Volunteers, initially. People willing to leave Earth behind to ensure humanity's survival in this Davigis. Over generations, we became something different, a branch of humanity shaped by both our origin and the guidance of our alternate selves." "And the Orion Compact?" Helena asked. "Real, but not what we led the Vextari to believe. It's not a galactic governing body. It's a coalition of refugee species from multiple failing universes, all working together to establish footholds in stable realities like this one." Marcus leaned back, processing the implications. "So when the Vextari attacked Earth, they didn't just attack humans," Thorn finished. "They attacked the control group in a multi-universal anthropological experiment. an experiment deemed crucial to understanding how intelligent life develops across realities. On the Vexteri homeworld, chaos reigned as reports flooded in from across the Dominion. Colony after colony had fallen, not through devastation, but through precision strikes that left their civilizations intact while removing all military capability. In the Ascendancy Council chamber, the remaining high commanders argued bitterly. "We must launch the doomsday weapons," insisted military overseer Vex Dureth. "If we cannot have our empire, let the humans inherit only ashes." Elder strategist Vex Morath shook his head. "The weapons have been neutralized. Their locations were compromised hours ago." "How?" Supreme Overlord Vex Kamthor demanded. "Our security protocols were designed to counter threats we understood," Vex Morath interrupted. "The humans operate on principles we cannot comprehend because they themselves are not what we thought them to be." On the massive view screen, a new fleet of obsidian vessels appeared in orbit around Nexus Prime. Thousands of ships, dwarfing even the home defense fleet. Ground defenses fell silent as quantum distortions disabled their power grids. "They're not destroying," one commander observed in confusion. "They're disabling." "Because destruction was never their objective," Vex Morath said quietly. "We are not being conquered. We are being contained." As the Vexteri civilization came to terms with its sudden downfall, leaders from Earth gathered aboard the TF Excalibur. Representatives from nations that had been on the brink of annihilation now found themselves thrust into a galactic community they never knew existed. "The transition will be challenging," Thorne explained to the assembled group. "Earth has developed in isolation by design. Integration with the broader human civilization will take time." "And these other universe refugees?" asked the newly appointed United Earth ambassador. "What do they want from us?" "Partnership," Thorne replied. The multiverse theory had one aspect wrong. Universes don't exist in isolation. They're interconnected. What happens in one affects others. The collapse of alternate realities isn't random, it's spreading. Marcus, who had been silent throughout the briefing, finally spoke. "This was never just about the Vextari, was it? They're a symptom of something larger." Thorne's expression turned grave. "The Compact's physicists believe that aggressive, expansionist species like the Vexteri accelerate entropy in their universes, their hunger for conquest, their inefficient use of resources, their destruction of balanced ecosystems. It all contributes to universal decay. So by stopping the Vexteri," Helena began. "We're treating the symptom," Thorne confirmed. "But the disease, the accelerating collapse of the multiverse, continues." Earth was preserved as a control group to study balanced development, to find patterns that might lead to sustainable existence. On the holographic display, the surrendered Vexteri fleet hung suspended above their homeworld, surrounded by the vastly superior human armada. The once mighty empire had crumbled in days, their arrogance revealed as the fatal weakness it had always been. "Power isn't about technology or numbers," Marcus observed, watching the display. "It's about perspective. The Vexteri believed themselves apex predators because they could only conceive of a universe that mirrored their own values. They never considered that true power might look entirely different." "Exactly," Thorne agreed. "They conquered because they couldn't imagine not conquering. They saw Earth's apparent technological inferiority as weakness because they couldn't conceive of deliberate restraint." "And now," Helena asked, "what happens to them?" "Rehabilitation," Thorne said. "The Compact believes every species deserves the chance to evolve beyond their worst instincts." 1 month later, Marcus Wright stood on the observation deck of the orbital station Harmony, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath him. The reconstruction efforts were well underway, with technology from the Expeditionary Force accelerating the process of rebuilding. Admiral Thorne joined him at the viewport. "The Vexteri Overlord has formally abdicated. Their transition to a representative government has begun, and the other species they subjugated being restored to independence, with protection guarantees from the Compact." Marcus nodded slowly, still processing the scale of change that had unfolded in mere weeks. "You realize most of humanity still can't grasp what's happening. Going from near extinction to being part of a multi-universal civilization is a lot, which is why we're proceeding carefully," Thorne replied. "Earth will maintain its autonomy. The technology transfer will be gradual. We want integration, not absorption. Below them, Lights from cities twinkled across the night side of the planet, many rebuilt with materials that would have seemed miraculous months earlier. What about the accelerating entropy? Marcus asked. The collapse of universes. Thorn's expression turned solemn. That's the real war, Marcus. The Vextari were just a battle. The Compact has detected distortions in neighboring realities that suggest other expansionist species are approaching technological thresholds that could threaten universal stability. And we're going to stop them? We're going to try. Earth's unique development pathway, especially how you responded to the Vextari crisis, has provided valuable data. The Prometheus signal you activated wasn't just a call for help. It was the final test. Test of whether Earth humans, developed in isolation, would find the same solution our alternate selves discovered, that cooperation, not domination, is the path to survival. Marcus turned from the viewport to face Thorn directly. So what happens now? Now, Thorn said, handing him a data tablet displaying star charts marked with ominous quantum distortions, we prepare. These incursions are accelerating. The barriers between universes are weakening. What happened with the Vextari was just the beginning. As Marcus studied the data showing dozens of potential threats emerging across the multiverse, he understood that humanity's journey had only just begun. From nearly extinct to apex defenders, they now stood as guardians, not just of Earth but of reality itself. I thought we were fighting for our survival, Marcus said quietly. But we're actually fighting for everyone's. Thorn nodded gravely. That, General Wright, is what makes humans the true apex predators of the galaxy. Not our technology or our numbers, but our capacity to defend more than just ourselves. Beyond the viewport, the stars seemed to shine with new meaning, not just distant suns, but doorways to universes in peril, waiting for humanity to fulfill its unexpected destiny.